Good evening, Rowan. It's the 12th of November 2015 and it's about 11:30, and I'm moving on this evening to the next exciting episode of my video series, and I'm going to be making this video about something that St John of the Cross said in his book The Dark Night, which was one of the commentaries that he wrote about his poem Dark Night, and I'm going to be quoting from Book 2, Chapter 10. And I'll explain my reasons for quoting from it later on. But first of all, I want to say that, like St Teresa of Avila, St John of the Cross, who was a very good friend of hers and fellow Carmelite reformer, writes works which describe the spiritual journey, and in particular the contemplative journey, and the means by which, and the description of how a soul can attain union with God through contemplative prayer. And this is the purpose of his book The Dark Night, which I'm going to be quoting from. And I'm going to be quoting from part 1 of chapter 10 to explain an analogy that he uses to explain how the soul is transformed during this contemplative journey, during what he calls the passive night of the soul. There is an active night, the night of the senses, that comes before this, but in Book 2 he's talking about the passive night, the night of the soul. And the reason that it's passive is that all the action that takes place is done by God. The soul is completely passive. The soul has only consented to be on this journey, and from then on, God makes the decisions about how to work in the soul and to transform the soul to bring it further on this journey towards union with himself. So I'm quoting from chapter 10 now to explain this analogy that St John of the Cross gives. Chapter 10, Part 1. For the sake of further clarity in this matter, we ought to note that this purgative and loving knowledge or divine light we are speaking of has the same effect on a soul that fire has on a log of wood. The soul is purged and prepared for union with the divine light, just as the wood is prepared for transformation into the fire. Fire, when applied to wood, first dehumidifies it, dispelling all moisture and making it give off any water it contains. Then it gradually turns the wood black, makes it dark and ugly, and even causes it to emit a bad odour. By drying out the wood, the fire brings to light and expels all those ugly and dark accidents that are contrary to fire. Finally, by heating and enkindling it from without, the fire transforms the wood into itself and makes it as beautiful as it is itself. Once transformed, the wood no longer has any activity or passivity of its own, except for its weight and its quantity that is denser than the fire. It possesses the properties and performs the actions of fire. It is dry and it dries. It is hot and it gives off heat. It is brilliant and it illumines. It is also much lighter in weight than before. It is the fire that produces all of these properties in the wood. So here, St John of the Cross is using the wood or the log to represent the soul, and the fire, which he earlier in the book explains is the Holy Spirit. The fire represents God, and the fire transforming the wood into itself, into fire, is the action of God in the soul, transforming the soul to become more like God and to be one with him and to be united with him, and to be united with him to the extent that it's quite difficult to separate the two. You can't separate the wood from the fire once it's become an ember. It's impossible to separate the two, and the wood is acting as if it were fire. So I know quite a bit about fires and embers, coming from a mining community and relying on coal fires for the only source of heating for about 20 years of my life, and especially in the earlier part of my life. So if you imagine that you're setting light to something, a piece of wood or a piece of coal, well, when it's only got flames around the outside, if you blow on it, you blow it out basically, or you make the flames dodge around all over the place. But as the fire takes hold and transforms this wood or transforms this coal into itself, so that eventually there's no distinction between the coal and the fire or the wood and the fire, then what happens if you blow on that is you just make it shine more brightly and you make it burn more hotly. So the reason I've explained this to you this evening is because of all your idiotic behaviour trying to shut me up. Because all you do when you keep trying to blow me out is you just make me burn more hotly and more brightly. And don't interpret that in a sexual way, because I know what a pervert you are. So you're just increasing the intensity of the fire by trying to blow me out, and you're too dumb to realise that. So this is the reason that I wanted to read this particular passage to you. Now don't forget, this is The Dark Knight, Book 2, Chapter 10, Part 1. You can look it up. Anyway, there is another thing I want to say along these lines as well. You think you're having a debate with me, and if we use the analogy of being on a football pitch, this is what you think is happening. I kick the ball one way and you kick it back at me. I kick it back again. You try kicking from another angle and I kick it back again. And then you try another angle and I kick it back again. That's what you think is happening. Now let me tell you what is really happening. You're on the football pitch on your own, kicking your ball round in circles. And I'm on the tannoy, announcing to everyone your game plan. I'm not even on the field. So stop thinking you're kicking the ball at me. What you're doing is you're kicking it round in little circles, and you're so obsessed with yourself you can't even see it. I'm on the tannoy. I'm not even on the pitch. I'm announcing to everyone what your game plan is. And I know what your game plan is, and half the time you don't even seem to know it yourself. So that's my analogy as to what's going on. And you keep blowing on me, but instead of putting me out, you just make me shine more brightly. So why don't you just grow up? Why don't you just grow up? Why don't you just realise you were wrong? You were 100% in the wrong. You're a scumbag. You need to accept that and turn round and head in the other direction. Stop thinking we're playing a game and you're going to win, because I'm not even on the pitch. I'm just telling everyone your game plan. This picture was drawn by St John of the Cross. It's not a very good replica of it actually. It's an ink drawing, or it looks like pen anyway. If you see the original thing, which is in the Convent of the Incarnation in Avila, he gave it to one of the nuns there, and it's been kept there. The distinctive thing about it is, although it's just showing a picture of Christ on the cross, instead of showing it from a human perspective, it's actually showing it from the perspective of God the Father. And this signifies that the soul, in a state of union with God, can perceive the world, can see the things that go on from the perspective of God. That's not really relevant to you, you know. Because to revert back to St. Teresa, you're not even in the castle. And God can't decide to bring you on this journey because you won't consent. You're determined to head off in the opposite direction and throne your ego above everything and try and bully and destroy and ruin anyone who you feel threatened by. So you're not on this journey. God can't bring you on this journey because he doesn't force anybody. You have to consent. Anyway, that's my video for this evening. And just can only imagine what crap you're going to come out with next. Theology to you means trying to find cunning ways to justify yourself and beat down your enemies. And to promote the globalist agenda. That isn't theology. Theology literally means the study of God. And you're not talking about God, ever. You're just trying to promote a political agenda and defend your own ego and satanic lifestyle. Anyway, I'll have to go now. My battery's nearly flat on my camera, you'll be pleased to hear. So, have a good day, won't you, tomorrow? And don't forget, be alert. Hasta mañana.